Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Healing Hearts podcast. I am your host, Sarai, and I am here with Julie. Julie, how are you today?
Fantastic. Excited to be here for another fun episode. Well, this one's a little bit icky, but it'll be good.
It's not icky. It's great because we're going to help those couples out there.
For sure.
But before we get started, I want to ask everybody, every single one of our listeners or viewers, to hit the follow button or the subscribe button because in order for us to keep this podcast going, we need to get those subscriptions going. And we love doing this for you guys, but it is time that we are taking out of our busy schedules that we love to give you all this information. So in order for this podcast to continue to grow, we need your feedback, we need your love, we need your follows, we need your subscription. So hit the little bell, hit the little plus sign wherever you are listening to this podcast, watching this podcast. Just give us the love that way. Anyway, so today we are actually going to be talking about recovery time after a fight. And what do we mean by recovery time after a fight? You know, when you get into a fight and then you can go, well, some people can go days without talking to their partner because they're that upset. That is what we're talking about. That time to shrink it. So I thought that it was a great topic that I heard somebody else. I was like, hey, nobody talks about that when it comes to relationships. Like nobody talks about the extended amount of time that sometimes we say we need to cool down, which is fine if you need the extended time. But when it comes to being in a relationship, I just think that there has to be a healthy enough amount of time to come back to your partner. Julie, what do you think?
Yes, I definitely think that there should be what you said, healthy time.
Healthy.
And yeah, you know that word. um, if anybody's wondering, it was part of our training that we weren't supposed to say unhealthy was not a word that our person that, you know, didn't like. So anyway, we can, yeah. So I really think it is important to have communication around that and set boundaries because not talking to your partner for days is just not healthy
Healthy.
for a relationship, especially if you want to have a strong relationship. It's just not.
Yeah. Yeah.
My opinion. If I was giving my opinion to someone, which I don't normally, I think it's childish. You know,
Yes.
not babies. We're not like, and it really depends on what has happened. So I don't want to be callous. If someone, you know, cheated on you or did something this big betrayal. It really depends. But if it's just an argument or a disagreement, days on end is just why are you doing that?
Yeah. What is in your relationship, what is your recovery time?
um there is no recovery time. We discuss it if
You talk about it right away.
right away. Yeah, right away. We
I
don't
like
have, yeah, we don't have a lot of conflicts, but like in the past,
hmm
if we had a disagreement, we deal with it right there. We never go to bed without kissing each other and telling each other we love each other. Never. That's just not, and that's an agreement we have with each other though.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own way of doing things, but we just don't want to live our lives 1 second, harboring animosity towards the other person. So,
Yeah.
that's just me and my relationship. Well, how about you? What have you done in the past?
I have always tried to avoid the arguments. I think in my last relationship, because it was long distance, I felt that and this can tell you how not healthy of a relationship it might have been. I just felt that if I like rocked the boat too much, something was going to happen to where like he left me. And
Mm.
I always carry that anxiety with me because of my previous relationships to where it was It wasn't on me that I didn't want to talk to him. It was that he would like completely shut me out and wouldn't like text me or anything. And then I would be going crazy. So I just did not have, again, quote unquote, healthy. And I'm going to stop doing the healthy part on that because it was just a very unhealthy relationship. It was really not healthy to be in that type of relationship. But in that first relationship where he would like completely shut me out, I don't think I had the luxury or to even have that type of like, I'm not going to talk to you because in reality, I was like, let's talk about it. I want to talk about what's going on. And he'd be like, no, 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 no. In my last relationship, I think we had maybe like a handful of arguments. And the first argument that we had, he was very, and maybe that's why I had that anxiety the rest of the relationship. He's like, if you can't trust me, then we don't need to be together. And I was like, oh, okay. So it was very, in a sense, I guess it was a manipulation on his part, but I don't even know if you would call it a manipulation. It was just him just saying, like, I'm not going to be with somebody that doesn't trust me. Hindsight, I shouldn't have trusted him. But um it kind of just set the tone for the relationship. So I really didn't ever want to rock the boat too much. The only time that I did where I stood up for myself and I was like, this is not okay with me, we did end up like quote unquote breaking up because I was like, I'm not, no, I don't want this. Like, it's not going to be that way. And like, I wanted it to be, I don't even remember what we were arguing about in that aspect or at that point, but he did kind of like, well, if you don't want it that way, then there's no need for us to be together. And I did kind of like went silent on him for like a day. And then he did reach out to me. He's like, so what are we doing? I'm like, oh, so I guess you are talking to me. And I think we talked about it and it was like, okay, well, how are we going to move forward from this? So in that aspect, it was quote unquote healthy, but I have always been in relationships where I walk around in eggshells, so I avoid the conflict because it's just too much for me. But I don't know. I don't know now. I'm a new and improved woman, so you never know what might happen now.
Yeah, hopefully I think you're going to be that strong woman to set those boundaries because you've done a lot of work. So,
I think that now I have better communication skills to where like I can say what I'm trying to get out without getting it to the argumentative like part, and I can be more assertive and not confrontational.
there you
Because I
go.
think that's the difference. Like you can be assertive of what the things that you want, and then there's ways that you can say things where it becomes confrontational and creates the conflict, and then they don't listen to you. So there's nobody wins at that point. So I've learned and I've practiced with people in my life as I have gone through this journey of knowing how to bring up stuff with me saying what I need and my needs and my wants and still having the empathy and the communication skills to listen to that person and seeing where they're coming from and trying to understand their way. I guess it comes with coaching and the whole being trained as a coach and not wanting to just like blurt out the first thing that comes out of your mouth. So that has helped. So
Yeah,
hopefully that can help me moving forward in my relationships, which I'm ready for one.
awesome.
You hear
So
me, universe? I'm ready.
as far as the word assertive, it's funny because I've said that to several clients, the word assertive, and they're like, "Oh, but I don't want to, rock the boat." I'm like, "Well, being assertive doesn't mean you're being confrontational, just like you said. It's just having the confidence to speak up for yourself." They're like, "Oh, okay." But if I said I'm being assertive, I'm like, you're just having confidence to speak up for yourself. It's like it's several clients have worried about that word and like it's a bad thing, and it's not. It's a great thing to have as long as
Usually when I yeah, usually when I have clients like that where like their words have a different meaning to what I'm trying to say, I usually ask them like, okay, well, what does this word mean to you? And then, and again, it goes along with those communication skills of wanting to understand what the other person is like kind of processing. I was listening to a podcast today about like public speaking and how people listen because that is one of the biggest like communication like breakdowns. Like you can talk all day, which we've talked about many times, which we're going to do like an episode on just communication. But this person was saying is like, oh, well, yeah, everybody knows how to talk, but nobody knows how to listen. He's like, and there you got to remember that not everybody listens like you listen. So you have to put that kind of mentality in your brain. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think as coaches, it has helped, at least it has helped me to kind of take a step back and be like, what is this person really trying to say? And I can tell you, because I was one of those people, one of those clients that you might have had where assertive meant like, oh, I'm rocking the boat and I'm like setting my foot down. And to me, assertiveness before was kind of be like, it's my way or the highway kind of mentality, to where if I did it, I was going to lose instead of gain power in the relationship or power in the relationship. So maybe that's where they're coming from and why they're having those types of thoughts or their definition. So I always ask, like, what does this mean to you?
Right. And definitely that's what I asked. Like further in the session, we got down to actually what it does mean to her. And
Hmm.
it was negative,
Yeah.
and how she's seen that word in the past. And then we reframed it and we got it to a place where, we found a different word that might mean the same thing that was positive for her. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's it's kind of crazy how certain words that are very common have very different meanings for different people. And as coaches, at least how I have been able to change my mentality in regards to like even like not even trying to come as even like using words to not come off as judgmental because people have certain words that are triggers to them to where they're like, oh, you're calling me this and like you're being very judgy and you know what I mean? So it's been a helpful tool to be a coach, but yeah, assertiveness has changed. The definition of assertiveness for myself has changed a lot since I started actually doing a lot of work on myself. So there you go. I do have a question for you.
okay.
Um, Do you, because you have been married for such a long time, and I know that you shared as far as like what you do in your relationship, and it's great, but what about like your clients when you see them? Is there any like insights that you can share on like the factors that could influence the recovery time needed after a fight? And how can couples navigate that like effectively? Like, is there something in particular that you really could share in regards to that?
A lot of clients have a problem with tone. That's something
Mm,
that blows up, the way you say something to someone. So a lot of the times we're working on how to speak to each other in a way that meets their needs, that makes them feel seen, heard, and loved, but also gets across what they need to say. So that's a lot of what we work on.
that's it's really, really good. And like I think like you said in the beginning too, like it depends on the type of fight that you guys are having.
Yeah.
Like that could be like a big thing.
Yeah.
What would you say is the best time frame in regards to like a cool off period for a couple?
Oh, that just depends on what happened. I mean, I would say no more than 2 hours, you know, and then come back and discuss it. And but a lot of clients, a lot of people, clients that at least that I see, just they don't know how to navigate those things because they've been doing it the same way for so long and it doesn't work. So
Hmm.
they need to find those new ways of, expressing themselves
Yeah.
without being back after those 2 hours and being like, you know, that's not going to change anything. But if you come back with some empathy and
Yeah.
understanding and acknowledgement of the other person, that oftentimes will help. What about you?
I can tell you from personal experience that a lot of the things that when we did argue and if he asked for like time to cool off or whatever, I would create this story in my head that he was going to go do all of these other things or that he was going to say all of these other things. So the story, the narration that was in my head during that cool off period, I think that that has an impact on how you're going to recover from that fight. It's like he or she is just asking for 5 minutes. Like, why are you pressuring this person? And I think you should really ask for like maybe they won't give it to you in that moment, but once you do come back and you give them their space, like ask for that clarity that you are needing to feel secure in your relationship. I don't know if that makes sense, but to
Yes.
me, it was very much like I was going with whatever my head was like, all the scenarios that could possibly happen if I gave him this space. And maybe even asking before you go onto your like corners, like how much time do you really need? And if he tells you, I need 3 hours, then fine. And if he says, I need a week because it's one of those fights, then give him the week because you just never know. That's what because I just don't know. Like we said, we don't know what type of like fight you might be having and the
You better have
intensity
murdered
of it.
someone. You better have murdered someone if you're going to be waiting a week to talk to someone. I mean, how serious can you actually be to not talk to the person you love, who you're in a relationship with?
But what
Okay,
if they cheated on you and you like you caught everything and maybe it well, obviously it turned
you
into an argument and
be with that person, you need a week. Like, I don't
what
know.
if you are the one that's needing the week to kind of process everything that's happened? I think that people should honor, but at the same time, in that week is asking the clarity, okay, what are we going to be doing in this 1 week that we're not going to talk to each other? It's fine. I think it's fine to give the time, but at the same time, clarify like we're giving each other a week for what?
Right.
To think about the relationship, to move forward with the relationship. Like, what are we giving ourselves the week for? And that's what I mean by like the clarity
Right.
and like wanting to say, okay, I am gonna give you now they ask for a month. It's like, okay, no, we're not Ross and Rachel. This is not a break. I can give you X amount of time, but like that's a lot. After that, even if they have murdered somebody, like maybe you shouldn't be with that person.
Well, and it it's just such a toughie because I think it's really challenging because if you cheated and you live apart, a week it would be very easy, like to have your space. But if you live together, that is a whole nother ball of wax. Like, are you sending? There's just so much that goes along with it. Are you not going to
Yeah.
speak to each other? You live in the same house. Like, how are you're going to have to talk about things?
Yeah, like
Um,
the dynamics of
Eating
it.
is a biggie, and I agree. I think that just depends on the relationship.
Hmm.
But these intermittent disagreements and things, I hear people all the time tell me that, oh, I didn't like his tone, so I didn't talk to him for 3 days. What? Like, that's not acceptable in a strong relationship, a strong, healthy relationship. Why aren't you talking to that person? Why aren't you asking for clarity? Because 3 days because you didn't like their tone? Like, that's not your parent.
Yeah,
I
which
know
kind of leads
I
me
like
to
it harsh, but
yeah, which kind of leads me to like I'm gonna piggy off of that from you, and I wanted to ask you because you are the couple expert here. Um, are there any like warning signs that you suggest or that you have seen or that suggest actually, um, like that this couple might need assistance of like a professional?
I think if you're on the hamster wheel of conflicts and you keep talking about how you're going to do better, or and it just keeps going in a circle, like I said, the hamster wheel, I think seeking out help is a great idea, and not waiting until the last minute, when you're ready to separate, divorce, and that's a
Yeah.
lot of times that we get, or at least I get clients, is when it's like the end of the road for them. It's like, why didn't you guys get help before when you saw the problems happening? Because you can fix little things, make little tweaks. But like if you're already like, ah, we're
Done.
out, 1 foot out the door, that's really hard to fix. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I went on a tangent anyway. So you're
No,
welcome.
yeah, I think you, well, at least I think you did. Um, I agree. Like if the fight keeps like is the same fight over and over and over again, just in a different scenario, and somehow it leads back to the same old BS, then yeah, that should be like your red flag there waving really high. I was like, we keep arguing about the same thing. And like I agree with you. I think that people usually go to a counselor, or a coach, or a therapist when they are pretty much ready to call it quits, which
Yeah.
is kind of something like we were talking about in regards to like the commitment. It's like, well, I'm going to show up, but how fully invested am I in this? So, I agree that the reoccurring fight or the escalation of the same fight continues to happen, then that might be a sign for you to go and talk to somebody and don't wait until the end. Mind you that if the fight is escalating to something physical, then no, there's no need for you. You need to get help to get out of there, not to fix your marriage, or your relationship. I think another thing is like if the fight continues to happen and there's no resolution at the end, then you might be needing help. I can't talk today. Um, you might be needing help to go talk with somebody with like a neutral party that can see
Right.
both perspectives and just kind of ask questions that are really going to challenge you in regards to like what your role is in this whole fight and why you guys continue to have this fight. Because I can assure you that if you guys came to us as coaches, we're not going to be telling you, well, this one's right and this one's wrong. Like we would both be challenging you as far as like what the trend or the pattern is in between both of you and challenge you with questions in regards to that. Um, but yeah, I think that's have I totally agree with you, having that same fight. Oh, I had the same fight with my baby daddy over the same thing all the time. All the time. And there was never ever resolution, like, it always escalated to the F yous, the blah, 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 and, you know, eventually, like, I was just like, "I'm done. Peace out. Bye, boring."
Right. So like learning conflict resolution skills is key, right? And if you need a third party to help you with that, that's what we do. That's what we do. So, and teaching you communication skills, how you guys need to be spoken to and what your needs are in those moments so you can have these conflicts and they don't escalate to these explosions.
I actually learned a really good technique. I went to a Tony Robbins seminar, and there was this couple that they were having a hard time, and he uses what he calls it an acronym. It's SEW, and it's SEW. So it's S for sensations,
Mhm.
E for emotions, and W for what do you want or what do you need. And he took them through this whole entire thing. I was like, oh my God, this is genius. And I was just like writing down notes, and in the back, I'm like, oh my God, like how can I pause this? Because like I'm like missing everything. But the way that he had them talking to each other and using that technique to listen to what the other person was saying and not just going off of that. And it was, I'm not blasting men, but it was very different to hear a woman talk about her emotions and what she was actually like experiencing, and then hearing a man talk about his emotions and what he was feeling. And Tony like drilled on him. I think that's one of the things that I like about this man, that he doesn't give a shit and he like gives it to you. And he's like, "Well, I was thinking and I felt." He's like, "No, no, 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 no." He's like, "I want to know like what you were experiencing. What did it feel physically in your body?" And then the guy finally like opens up and he's like, "Well, when you told me this, I felt like pressure on my chest and blah blah blah." And that made her kind of come around in a different like mentality, as like, "Oh wow, like it's physically like debilitating him to hear these words." So it was very like insightful to hear that. And then when they finally got to like the needs of what do you want, it wasn't like, well, what do you want to do? It's like, what do you want? What do you want out of this? We want to move forward. So what do you want to do? And he's like, well, I want to be able to trust you. And then Tony was like, no, 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 no. That's not a real want. What do you want from her? Well, I want you to be home at this time to do this in order for me to trust you again. And it was like so mind blowing because it was a different type of like communication that I just don't think that people right now have the capacity to actually do because they don't want to hurt feelings. And that's when we get into like the cycle of having the same argument because you bottled it up because you didn't want to hurt their feelings, but in reality, you're making it worse because you're going to explode and then word vomit and venom is going to come out of your mouth and make the fight even worse the next time it rolls around. So I I have that in my notes now and I have it everywhere that I write down. And whenever I'm talking to somebody, it's like, okay, I need to figure out like where they are at mentally, emotionally, and physically before I even talk next. So it was a great technique. So there you guys have it. So by Tony Robbins. I don't even know if he came up with it or not, but fuck, that was good.
I love Tony Robbins.
Um, are there any other effective techniques that you can share with like our listeners in regards to like or strategies, effective strategies for like couples to heal and like reconnect after a conflict or a fight?
Well, I think being empathetic, but one thing that I did want to mention was using I statements when you're in conflict. I need, I feel, not you. You did this.
Mhm.
You didn't want. We bring it back to ourselves, and it makes the person softer because listening, because it
Mhm.
helps them see like, oh, they're not shooting at me, even though we kind of are. We're just, but we're bringing it back to ourselves. So I think that's really important using I statements. Um, but I think using to answer your question, I think being empathetic.
Mhm.
Um, can you ask me the question again? Because I want to make sure that I'm answering the right
Well,
question.
just having like effective strategies for couples so that they can heal and reconnect after the fight. Because I think it's more like
Yeah,
the
I
reconnection after that. Sometimes you might be like, I can tell you this morning, I lost it on my child. I was like, why are you so inconsiderate? And I just like blew up on her because of everything else that's been going on. And I felt so bad. So I was like, I need to take some time and walk away. So I even closed the door to my bedroom and I took the time. I went to my meeting, came back, and I did apologize to her. And I was like, you know what? I'm so sorry that I yelled at you. I've been going through a lot and there's a lot of things happening. It's like, I just need you to be more considerate and I need you to like pick up your broom. I need you to, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And I think that not, yes, I agree with you on the empathy. Oh, there's my cat. Um, the empathy with the other person, but with yourself as well, because there's times where we just lose it and we just say things and like, being able to recognize that you might have said something out of anger doesn't necessarily mean that that's how you really felt. I can tell you for one that once I'm really stressed out and like there's a lot happening in my life, I lose my shit with whoever is in front of me. I don't care who it is. It could be the Pope and I would still lose my shit. So having that empathy and understanding with yourself to say that was not me in that moment. That was my reaction to whatever the emotions that were going through me. So I that might be something I don't know. You guys can take it.
I love that. Just the fact that you apologized.
Yeah.
You saw that you were having a moment and you went and apologized. And a lot of people don't do that. They because it ends up escalating so much. This was your child, so your child doesn't, some children talk back a lot, some people, some don't. But, if it could have got really escalated if she would have just been yelling back at you and then you yelling back at her and you're just spilling all the venom. It's a lot more difficult. And so it's good that you just took yourself out of the situation, you thought about it, and then you came back and apologized. And I think that's perfectly, you saw that, how you reacted was not how you wanted to react, and you
Mhm.
fixed it. And I think if people could be more receptive to that instead of like, well, I heard what you said. You said all that bad stuff, and now I'm not talking to you for 5 days. I
Yeah.
mean, some relationships are like that, but
Yeah, and I guess we're trying to say is like hold yourself accountable as
yeah,
well. Like I feel like when I have people come to me or like potential clients come to me and they're talking to me, I always ask them like, "Well, what's your role in this whole situation?" Because I want people to hold themselves accountable and not always be in the victim mode because sometimes we say things that can offend people and like that's what I was saying. It's like not everybody listens the same way that you listen. So if you
no,
might have said something, you might have offended somebody by without even knowing it. So just having the open mindedness to hold yourself accountable might be something good and having an open mind to actually come back and be like, okay, I think the other thing and which we talked about in the episode of commitment is like be ready to do the work. Like if you really want to save this relationship, even if it was a stupid fight or not, like that fight can it might be a pebble that later on can be like the detriment of your relationship.
mm,
So if you really want to save this relationship or this marriage, is like really be ready to do the work and not just like walk out and peace out on the first one that because in reality that's not maturity. Like you said in the very beginning of the episode, it's not being very mature and like being completely honest to what you are looking for in the relationship. And this like, why did you even get into a relationship if you weren't ready to have the dialogue back and forth? So having the open mindedness, I can give you that this is my strategy of how I'm going to move forward. And my potential relationship is that I'm going to have to be very open minded as far as like what this person is telling me and be ready to, yeah, to stick it through again to whatever healthy limit it is to me because I still have to be honest and true to myself and not in the context of like I'm going to be egotistical and I'm going to be thinking about myself. But if this person is putting me in a situation where I just don't feel like I'm being true and honest to me, then maybe I don't want to do the hard work of if you're going to continue to let's say fuck me over and over and over again and I give you the chance and I give you the chance. You know what I mean? So there's certain scenarios where like you do have to put yourself into consideration, but at the end of the day if you want your relationship to work, you do have to put in the work. Plain and
yeah,
simple. It doesn't just
yeah.
like a good relationship doesn't just like fall out of the sky. Like you're gonna have to learn how to talk to each other, how to listen to each other, how to like work with each other. So there's those are my things, but I don't know. What else did you have?
Well, I just wanted to piggyback on that commitment thing because I have a spiel when I talk to clients that if you are not committed to this process, don't even bother hiring me because
Yeah.
we're going to go through some hard thing. We're going to talk about some hard things, and if you're not committed to each other and to the process, it you could just go throw money out your car window while you're driving. I
Yeah.
always give that my spiel because it's like I want people that are committed to each other and
Yeah.
not okay, but that's a whole nother thing. But just wanted to say that
Yeah,
you're
because I think that a lot of people or a lot of couples, when they do realize, hey, we need help, and they go to a scenario where they're going to be hiring a professional, maybe they're there one of them is like 80% committed and the other one might be like 30% committed and they're not fully invested in it. And I think that's what I was trying to say in that episode. It's like, yeah, couples can decide to go to couples therapy, but that doesn't mean that they're fully committed to do the work as far as like I'm here to fix it. They're just there to please their partner. And then as they go through the journey, then now they have the excuse to say, well, after going through all of this, I've realized I don't want to be with you. And then they weaponize that. So that's what I was trying to say in that episode, as far as like the commitment of like the commitment is to you. So if you are really going to be committed to this relationship, then you yourself have to be committed to yourself to saying, I'm going to do the work to be in this relationship and not just fuck around and lollygag the next couple of sessions to see when I can take my exit. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean by commitment to oneself. It's like if you're really going to like be honest with you as far as like what do you want? Go through that so method yourself. It's like what are your sensations? What are your emotions? And what is it that you need and want from this relationship? And if you answer those questions, then maybe you don't even get to the third party and you can say, I gave it my all, and this fight was the straw that broke the camel's back, or whatever the saying is. You know what I mean? Because sometimes, again, as we mentioned, there's a lot of fights that continue to happen because there's needs that have been unspoken and that have not been communicated. And you get to the point where you're like, I've been fighting over the same thing and he's still not listening to me. He still doesn't understand me. But if you're not saying what you need, then how is he supposed to? Or if you're not saying what she needs or what you need, how is she supposed to? You know what I mean? Like it's either or. So it's one of those things that it just goes back and forth as far as like what is really what you're trying to get out of this entire thing. And continuous fights might be, like we mentioned, the red flag right there.
Yeah, and I'll also say that if you're having continuous, arguments, like try to seek a solution together. Okay, we're at this point. What do we need in this moment? What do we need from each other?
Hmm.
That's what you want to acknowledge. Like, what do you need from each other?
Yeah.
Move forward, not keep hashing out. Oh, we fought last year and you said this, and now it's part of the whole argument. Well, no.
So what do you say to somebody that might be like, well, what do you need in this moment? And she like rebuttals with, I just need you to listen to me. Like, what do you
How,
say then?
how can I be a better listener? What do you need when I do listen? It may be just to keep my mouth shut. It may be a hug. It may be to hold their hand. It, it could be so many things.
Yeah.
Even if you're angry, you could still express what you need,
Yeah.
or I need you not to be an asshole. Well, that's not an answer. That's not an answer. What do you need? And
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that whole Tony Robbins like thing. It's like, what do you really need? Like
right.
express that this is your chance to really say, like, when you say, I really need you to listen to me, what do you want to be listened on?
Yep.
Not just listen to me. What about it that you feel ignored? Like, what is this person not listening to you in regards to? Is it that he doesn't take out the trash? Is it that he's not satisfying you in bed? Is it that, like, because all of these arguments have a stem root of something that has just been bugging you and bugging you and bugging you. And it continues to fester and fester and fester until, like, you explode. But I think that once you get to that point, what we want you to take from this episode is having a plan of how quickly you're going to come back together instead of leaving the time apart. If you need a week, gain the clarity. If you need, oh, well, the clarity on what you're going to do in that week. If you need 2 hours, like we want you to come up with the plan that's going to benefit both of you, that after you have an argument, a disagreement, a fight, you have a plan of like, we're both going to give each other X amount of time to go cool down, come back together, and listen to each other empathetically, as Julie already said, and having an open mind and be ready to do the work with each other and not get to the point to where like looking at divorce at the end line. We don't want you to get divorced. At least I don't want you to get divorced. So, I mean, that's what this whole the main point of this episode is so that you guys learn and take skills of like, these are the warning signs of what might happen and this or where you could end up in. And if you are experiencing and seeing all of these red flags, it's like, okay, I need to take a step back and work on what we're doing because it's not working for us. Like, let's make this plan better. How can we make this better so that you guys have a healthier relationship instead of just running away from each other and then I'll see you when I see
Yeah, no.
you.
I think that a lot of times in a relationship, there's the fixer and then there's the avoidant. The fixer wants to settle it right there. No, I want to talk about it right now. And the other person's like, no, I need a moment. I need a moment. Like, no, why can't we talk about it right now? And if your partner is telling you they need a moment, say, I hear you. How much time do you need so we can talk about this again? They may say, I don't know. And you say, well, an hour or 2 hours? Because some people, the fixers sometimes are need that security to know that that person still wants them and loves them and is just not going to leave them.
Yeah.
So it's really important if you're in a healthy relationship uh, to give your person that clarity, you
And
know?
that's security too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important. It's so important because you may just be mad and that's okay. And you need time. That's okay. But let your person know, you know what? I just need a couple hours or I just need like, just give me some space and I'm going to go to the room and I'm going to process things and I'll be back in a little while, you know?
Yeah. Give him
And
the
that,
clarity and the security of like, I am coming back.
yeah.
Like, I just need this time, but I am coming back. Jay Shetty has a really good episode with his wife
I love
about their Jay Shetty right now is underwater. Like, I don't know why people are like hating on him, but anyway, haters.
Oh, I love that man. And
I
his
know that like you've made it when you got haters. So good job, Jay Shetty, on having haters now. But anyway,
what head can be underwater about?
just people like questioning about his certifications and like him being a monk and all of this. I'm like, there's pictures of the guy. Like, what does it matter? And he explains. I'm like, I can tell that you have not read his book or like even like delve into his life. But anyway, I digress.
Sorry.
What he was talking about was fighting styles and how he fights and how his wife fights and like understanding your partner's fighting style that sometimes they might say things and just like tell you to fuck off and then walk away
Yeah.
because that's how they blow off steam and that's how it's necessary for them. But you need to understand that don't take it personally. And that's what we mean by like the clarity of like the things of if if you yourself need to have the security of like you're coming back, right? I was like, ask for it. When are you coming back? Because I need to make sure so that I can be at peace with you walking away.
Mhm.
So when I listened to that episode, I was like, oh yeah, that's very true because I can be the type of person that I can go into a room, yell at you, and then walk out. It's very Scorpio of me to go in and be like, F you, this, and this, and then peace out. I leave you with all the damage. I have mentally trauma. What's that? What was that meme? Emotional damage. Um, I've left you with the emotional damage and I'm walking out. I've like dropped a bomb and be like, bye, bitch. And then whenever I feel like I'm ready to talk to you, then I'll come back. But if you understand that about me, then you can say, oh, this bitch is having a moment and she'll come back later and we can have an actual conversation. But understanding, I took it really, really to heart when he talked about understanding your partner's fighting style, because that is to your benefit of giving you, even in that moment, giving you the security of like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we're gonna go through this and she needs 5 minutes. I have to talk about it right now. So we're going to, what's that word I hate? Compromise and and work on it when we're both in a better mental state and move forward with it. Because I don't think that you will ever get to a resolution if you have the fixer and the avoidant or the anxious and the avoidant style trying to figure out a solution in that moment. It's hard to it's hard to get the avoidant to listen to you in that moment because all they want to do is run. All they
Right.
want to do is run in that moment and just be by themselves. And it's nothing against like having this like attachment styles or personality styles, whatever you want to call them. And that doesn't mean that you're not in a healthy relationship because you're, but it is very evident that couples that continue to fight in this manner are couples that one of them is avoidant and one of them is anxious because there's the pull and tug of the whole energy there where somebody's going to say something and the other one's going to jump in and want to fix it right away because they have this fear of being abandoned. So that's how you can tell that. At least that's how I've been able to tell when I've coached a handful of couples because I don't specialize in couples, but the handful of couples that I have, it's like I can tell which one is the anxious one and which one's the avoidant. I can tell you that Julie, when we did the episode, she's like, "You're an avoidant." I'm like, "Okay." Because I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, well, you'd be surprised. Um, but it is one of those things that I noticed while we were doing our certification as far as like why the fights happens because one is trying to fix it in the moment and the other one's trying to get away and just give your partner time. If they're asking for time, give them time. I think we've beat this one to death already.
I think you're right. I think we gave a lot of good what's the word? Oh my gosh. See, I think we have beat a dead horse because now I can't even speak. I think we said a lot of things in this episode that could help a lot of people.
Yeah.
Stories and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I just want you all like that are listening out there that you are in a relationship and you might be having um continuous fights or you might have had your first fight and you're trying to figure out like how do I apologize or how do I'm like just go apologize. Just take the first step. There's nothing wrong with you taking the first step. And you got to remember recovery time can be days or hours. Um you can shorten those days and hours by having good communication with each other. And it's it's a skill that a lot of us need to master, especially as I was saying right now, if we have that anxious attachment style where like we want to fix it in that moment. Sometimes communication cannot happen in that moment. So give your partner the break because that could really be the difference between not talking to your partner for days and maybe just having him being gone for like 20 minutes and coming back and be like, okay, that's all I needed. You never know. You never know, but you keep poking the bear and you're like, till he explodes and is like, leave me the F alone.
Right.
But that does it for us today. And I, as always, just remember choose you, love you, pick you, and we will see you in the next one.
Thank you so much.
Bye.